The biggest election coming up is for Thomas Massie in Congressional District 4 in the state of Kentucky. And I want to be very clear that when it comes to this guy, Ed Gallerin, he is pretty bad. And I'm sure you're all aware that there was attempted expose thrown at Massie earlier this week, suggesting that he had not only an inappropriate relationship with somebody I think he used to work with, but apparently provided hush money. And now it's looking like this entire story is falling apart. And all the while, what you have here is a desperate attempt by the machine to try to stop this man from being reelected. It's already the most expensive primary in history. You thought the Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush primaries were expensive. This is on a whole other level now. And yet, Massie is a slight favorite to hold on to his seat. When you take the chance to stand up against corporate power in a way that very few people ever choose to do, you got to tip your hat. And that's why I am hopeful that he will hold on Tuesday. But that being said, I want you to hear what Ed Gallerin has to say when he was confronted in a town hall, despite the fact that he has been summoned for a debate with Massie 8 times in the past 2-3 months. He's soundly rejected them all, although I would say that he's been given advice not to get involved. So here he is.
Took the press out of the middle and talk right to the people. What did President Trump do? What did Gallerin do? I'm going to talk right to you. I ain't scared enough. You think I lack for courage? In fact, they had to hog tie me from taking that bull on. So there ain't no money in it. The New York Times is going to show up, and all they're going to print is, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. Whatever they say, they're going to call it the gospel. And you ain't going to hear another word about it. So as you might guess, I'm not shy about courage about nothing. In terms of that.
But you haven't debated him.
I'm debating him right now.
No, you're not.
I'm glad
You're not debating him.
You're
giving a bunch of platitudes. You're not explaining anything. You've not gone toe-to-toe with the congressman.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not explaining your differences. You're not doing anything. You're not explaining any differences.
I just laid it all out, young man.
It made no sense. It made no sense.
I want to be very clear about the young man who is questioning Gallerin in this video. He is a conservative podcaster. He is not some left-wing person who just hopped in there to try to garner attention. No, he's saying, listen, I live in this district. I am, and clearly he supports Massie, and right, that's perfectly fine. I'm sure there are people that are in that town hall that do support Massie or have supported him, maybe considering Gallerin as an option, but they also want to hear what he has to say, since it is being suggested that numbers-wise, he is very competitive in this race, albeit because he has all of this corporate PAC and Israel lobby money coming in to save, to provide him with an infrastructure to win a congressional seat, because he's a wet blanket if there ever was. The thing I find the most disturbing is the fact that this guy apparently had some type of what we would call a decorated military career. And it looks like there were some gaps in his story, to say the least. But let's finish this out, and then we'll get to that point.
Yeah.
Why don't we
a civil conversation is the congressman and him debating, not him pulling up signs and a Letterman's jacket.
You asked a question, he answered it.
That's not an answer.
There was nothing surprising about that conduct, and Gallerin obviously does not and should not be a congressman, but this is the Donald getting really upset with Mr. Massie because he got in my way. Well, here's this. From Libertarians for Massie. Now we know exactly why Ed Gallerin has dodged 8 debates and hides from Kentucky voters. His entire campaign bio is a cover-up. Gallerin's central campaign claim is that he served 30 years as an active duty Navy SEAL from '84 to 2014. The receipts have dropped. Official 2011 Navy docs and his own circulated bio show he actually retired in August of 2011. So what was he actually doing from 2011 to 2014? He worked as a civilian contractor to the Department of Gemtech, the DOE Gemtech, where he was abruptly fired in 2013. He filed a whistleblower complaint over the firing and the government dismissed it. He was working for an NGO in Bangladesh. Right before running for Congress, Gallerin scrubbed the civilian firing and the Bangladesh NGO from his LinkedIn. He then padded his active duty Navy timeline by 3 years to cover the gap. He didn't just embellish. He used the uniform to hide a civilian termination from the voters of Kentucky Florida. Excuse me. This is why DC super PACs have spent $10 million to keep him in the witness protection program. If he gets on the debate stage, he knows he'll be exposed. Thomas Massie is running against a complete fraud. And I agree, he is. And so having the ability to speak that truth to power is not an easy thing to do. Massie is a prime example of somebody who has taken to great risk to, frankly, his safety and for the betterment of the nation. You know, he's going deep. And I also have to say, if there's anybody who deserves to stay in Congress, it's Thomas Massie. One of the last things he decided to do before he goes home for the weekend, for the home stretch of the election, he decided to once again issue or bring to the floor of Congress a bill called the AIPAC Act, which is to register the Israel lobby as a foreign agent. Not just AIPAC, but issue that the state of Israel and its lobby be registered as a foreign agent. Now that's power. And like I said, of all the people that I could have met when I was on Capitol Hill, I met the one guy I wanted to meet. And he turned out to be what I hoped he would be. He was a pretty swell gentleman. And there's really not a lot to be ecstatic for, if ever, when it comes to our federally elected representatives. But Massie is a dying breed. I don't want to say he's our last hope, but he is somebody that represents a way of legislating that is basically dead. The hyperpartisanship, he breaks through that. He's crossed party lines on a multitude of occasions, but he also sticks to his principles. Not everybody agrees with libertarian austerity economics. Just had Steve Grumbine on. I know he doesn't think highly of him in that regard, but when it comes to our civil liberties and when it comes to our foreign policy, there is no one better. I mean, he simply is the best there is. And he really does deserve to stay there. He had a parting statement before he headed home for the weekend.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's
I'm
do it.
walking to an airplane to rejoin the most expensive congressional race in U.S. history.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's a referendum, really. Unfortunately, it's turned into whether Israel gets to buy seats in Congress. And what they found out is that my seats are really expensive. They've probably, when this is over, will have spent $20 million and come up short.
So why is Israel the only country that gets to buy elections in the United States? Or does any other country get to? Is this
you know, I've never seen Great Britain or Australia or even Germany play in our elections here in the United States, but Israel gets so much from the United States. It's a one-sided relationship. They get us to be their proxies in wars that they want against their enemies. They get our military assistance, they get our technology, they get our bombs, they get our tax dollars. And I think it's a very one-sided relationship. At least with NATO, we pretend that they would come to our aid someday if we needed it. And even that's a ruse.
Yeah. So
Massie is sassy and he's classy. And he's undeterred. And in many ways, it should be inspiring. What I fear is that even if he does make it, is it really going to send the smoke signal for systemic change amongst the ranks? I think they see him as a heretic. I think a lot of people on the Hill really don't have courage. That's the danger. I know there's this theory that a lot of people are kind of hanging around, waiting to see what happens. And if Massie succeeds, that they're all of a sudden are going to change their tune as well. I'm not convinced that that is the case. And that is very true. His polls are exceptionally strong for everyone under the age of 55. For those over the age of 55, and especially those over the age of 65, they are supporting Gallerin. And I would say some of the primary motivators to do so is because, Captain Trump, King Trump is telling them that you totally have to support Gallerin, and they just listen. And we've seen, our friends over at More Perfect Union have been on the ground covering what's going on in Kentucky's 4th District. And what we saw is that the people that are supporting Gallerin, they're supporting him because Trump told them to. Like, well, President Trump says we should support him, so I'm going to support him. And of course, the guys look exactly as you would expect them to look. And therein, again, is one of the reasons why people constantly say that, well, it's all about the boomers, and until they're gone, we don't really have any opportunity to make systemic change in this country. In some respects, that is true. But it is also incumbent upon those that are not under, or, whatever age they may be. As long as you're the age of 18, especially through 29 and even 35, the numbers are there. You can make the change. But I also think it is imperative that you have somebody that inspires you. Thomas Massie inspires me. And I am confident, cautiously confident, that he's going to hang on to his seat. If anybody should, it's him.